In our budget 4 years ago, we committed that by 2025, 1 in 10 cars sold in Canada would be electric. And then we got to work, made sure that buying electric cars is more affordable. We invested in manufacturing and critical minerals, and now more Canadians are buying electric vehicles than ever before. We've reached our target 2 years ahead of schedule.
They think that they're going to sell those cars into the United States with no tax at the border. We're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. Everybody's going to be forced to buy an electric car, which they're not going to do because they don't want that. It's got a great market. It's got a market. It's really a sub-market. But they want everybody to have an electric car. We don't have enough electricity. We couldn't make enough electricity for that.
In our budget 4 years ago, we committed that by 2025, 1 in 10 cars sold in Canada would be electric, and then we got to work. We made sure that buying electric cars was more affordable, invested in manufacturing and critical minerals, and now, more Canadians are buying electric vehicles than ever before. We've reached our target 2 years ahead of schedule. However, there are concerns about the broader implications of this shift. Some argue that forcing everyone to buy electric cars isn't feasible, as the demand for electricity would outstrip supply. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump is forging ahead with a bold and unapologetic overhaul of his administration's trade policy, sending shockwaves through the long-standing economic partnership between the United States and Canada. For decades, these two nations have been intertwined in a massive trade relationship, with automobiles rolling off assembly lines, steel beams shaping skyscrapers, aluminum fueling manufacturing, and even dairy products crossing the border daily. In 2023 alone, bilateral trade hit over $900 billion, with Canada exporting roughly $350 billion worth of goods to the U.S., including more than 60% of its vehicles and a hefty chunk of its metals. But now, that relationship has reached a tipping point, and the tension is palpable. Canadians are openly asking, with friends like these, who needs enemies? This sentiment is sparking a heated debate. Could Canada really turn its back on the U.S. market, redirecting its vehicle and metal exports to forge deeper ties with the European Union? And what would that mean for industries, workers, and even iconic brands like Tesla? Trump's latest move is a doozy. His threatened tariffs as high as 100% on Canadian vehicles and metals, a proposal that's left Ottawa stunned and scrambling. We have a tremendous deficit with Canada, Trump stated. We're not going to have that anymore. We can't do it. I don't know if it's good for them. As you probably know, I say you can always become a state. And if you're a state, we won't have a deficit. We won't have to tariff you, etc., etc. This isn't just a shot across the bow. It's a cannon blast aimed at one of Canada's economic lifelines. The U.S. imports over 2 million Canadian-made vehicles annually, including pickup trucks from Ontario plants and SUVs assembled in Quebec, alongside millions of tons of steel and aluminum critical for everything from bridges to beer cans. Trump's justification is hinted at national security concerns and a desire to protect American industries, echoing his America First rhetoric from years past. Some insiders whisper that if these tariffs don't bring Canada to heel, even tougher measures could follow, perhaps targeting energy exports like oil and natural gas, which flow south at a rate of nearly 4 million barrels a day. Canada, however, isn't rolling over. If you pick a fight with us, we'll fight back, a senior official declared, setting the stage for a tit-for-tat showdown. One Canadian member of Parliament upped the ante, proposing a 100% tariff on Tesla, the electric vehicle juggernaut led by Elon Musk. Our retaliation will be a lot more surgical than that, they added, signaling a precise strike rather than a scattershot response. Another politician doubled down, saying if Trump's threats continue, we'll slap a 100% tax on all Teslas crossing our border. Why Tesla? It's personal and strategic. Tesla isn't just another car maker. It's a crown jewel of American ingenuity, a $1 trillion company that's revolutionized the electric vehicle market. Targeting it could ignite a political firestorm in the U.S., especially among Musk's vocal supporters, giving Canada a powerful bargaining chip. Plus, Tesla already has skin in the game north of the border. It's been eyeing Canada's vast mineral reserves for battery production and sells thousands of Model 3s and Model Ys to Canadian buyers each year. The idea of hitting Tesla isn't just symbolic, it's economic dynamite. In 2024, Tesla sold over 50,000 vehicles in Canada, a market that's embraced EVs thanks to generous rebates and a push for greener tech. A 100% tariff would double the price of a $50,000 Model Y to $100,000 overnight, cratering sales and slamming Tesla's North American growth. Beyond the showroom, it could disrupt plans to source lithium and nickel, key battery ingredients, from Canadian mines in places like Sudbury and Manitoba. Musk himself once called Canada a potential game changer for Tesla's supply chain. But now that vision's at risk. If you impose a 100% tax on me, Canada is essentially saying, I'll choke your auto industry and sell these resources elsewhere, maybe to Europe or China. But can Canada really pivot to the European Union as a viable alternative? It's a question that's as practical as it is provocative. The US isn't just Canada's biggest market. It's the most convenient one, too. Sharing a 5,500-mile border means goods move fast and cheap. Trucks haul auto parts from Windsor to Detroit in hours, not days. The two economies are so intertwined that 75% of Canada's exports, worth about $450 billion annually, go south. Replacing that with Europe, an ocean away, is no small feat. Shipping a container from Halifax to Rotterdam takes 2 weeks and costs thousands more than a quick jaunt to New York. Plus, the EU has its own metal and auto producers. Germany's Volkswagen and France's Renault aren't exactly desperate for Canadian imports when they've got local options. Yet, Ottawa is not bluffing when it says it has options. The Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, signed with the EU in 2017 is a lifeline. It's already slashed tariffs on 98% of goods, boosting Canadian exports to Europe by 30% since it took effect. Think $60 billion in trade by 2024. Unlike the US, the EU isn't flirting with protectionism. Its 450 million consumers offer a stable, open market. Canadian media is buzzing about how CETA could cushion the blow if Trump follows through. Our hands aren't tied, one outlet boasted. We've got a plan B. European leaders agree, with some suggesting Canada's trade deals are a breath of fresh air compared to Trump's tariff threats. Take steel. Canada's exported over 1 million tons to the EU since CETA kicked in. And there's talk of joint green steel projects, low-carbon production that aligns with Europe's climate goals. Still, analysts caution it's not a slam dunk. The EU can't fully replace the US market. Transport costs are triple what they are to Chicago, and regulatory differences mean Canadian car parts might need retooling to meet EU standards. Then there's competition. Poland and Sweden churn out steel, and Spain's got its own auto plants. Even so, Canada's betting it can carve out a niche. Minerals are a big draw. Europe's EV boom needs lithium and cobalt, and Canada's got plenty in places like Quebec's James Bay region. Pair that with CETA's tariff-free access, and you've got a compelling pitch. We're not walking away from the US, a trade expert in Ottawa said, but we're showing we've got leverage. Europe's our ace in the hole. Tesla's caught in the crosshairs of this brewing trade war, and it's no coincidence. Beyond its symbolic heft, it's a practical target. Canada's been a quiet partner in Tesla's growth, supplying raw materials and buying cars in droves. A tariff could kneecap that, sending prices soaring and stalling sales. Picture a Toronto dealership with unsold Teslas piling up or a Michigan factory scrambling for nickel now headed to Germany. It's not just Tesla, though. The whole North American auto industry is at risk. Under the USMCA, the rebooted NAFTA, steel, aluminum, and parts crisscross borders daily. Canada sends $15 billion in auto parts to the U.S. yearly, feeding plants in Ohio and Tennessee. A 100% tariff would shatter that, jacking up costs for Ford, GM, and Chrysler too. American buyers might see a $30,000 SUV jump to $40,000, while Canadian factory towns like Oshawa face layoffs. The fallout wouldn't stop there. Mexico's in the mix too. Its factories churn out 3 million vehicles a year, many reliant on Canadian steel. Disrupt that, and the whole USMCA framework wobbles. Both sides could lose big. U.S. consumers grumbling about pricier cars, Canadians mourning lost jobs. Why's my truck cost an extra $10,000? An Ohio driver might ask. Because we shut down our plants, a Windsor worker might reply. Yet, Trump's camp insists it's about security, keeping jobs and resources at home. Canada, meanwhile, sees it as bullying. If you push us this far, they're hinting, we'll sell to Europe or Asia instead. Asia's a long shot. Japan and Korea are far, and there's no free trade deal with China. The EU's the real contender. CETA's ambitious, eliminating tariffs, harmonizing rules, opening doors. Canada's already ramped up metal exports there, and auto parts could follow. Imagine German car makers like BMW sourcing steel from Nova Scotia or French EV startups buying lithium from Thunder Bay. It's not as seamless as the U.S. market. Shipping times stretch to weeks, costs climb, but it's a lifeline. Plus, the EU's climate push aligns with Canada's strengths. Green steel and battery minerals could forge a new partnership. If the U.S. doubles down on protectionism, Canada and Europe might even form a bloc, sidelining American influence. This isn't just a two-way fight. The EU could jump in, fast-tracking talks with Canada if Trump pushes too hard. We'll expedite negotiations, a Brussels official mused, hinting at a global trade realignment. Mexico might lean toward Europe too, splitting North America's unity. Canada's playing a long game. Global trade's shifting, they are saying. And we're not alone. Fully ditching the U.S. is risky. Proximity is too valuable, with $2.5 billion in goods crossing daily. But Europe's a credible plan B. Even if it's not easy, competition's fierce, shipping's pricey, and the U.S. market's still king. Don't underestimate us, Canada warns. We've got options. Trade wars rarely crown winners, just bruised losers. Prices spike, factories close, tensions fester. We've seen this before. In 2018, Trump's steel tariff sparked Canadian counter-tariffs on $12 billion in U.S. goods, think whiskey and ketchup. After months of brinkmanship, they compromised. Could history repeat? Maybe the U.S. dials back to a 25% tariff. Canada skips the Tesla tax, and both claim victory. Or maybe it drags on, with Tesla and consumers paying the price. Is Canada serious about Europe, or is this a bluff to force Trump's hand? Time will tell, but the stakes are sky high for highways, metalworks, and brands like Tesla.